welcome back to my channel. Alright, today's case is the Alexis Sharkey case, the Instagram influencer that was murdered in November 2020. The reason I've decided to cover this case is because it is still ongoing. I think it will be very interesting to put out my predictions, and then again if we see if there's any sorts of validations. I've done a lot of homework on this case. What I do feel around the case already is that it's not what people's expecting, or what the theories are at the moment around it. The case has went quite quiet in the last few months. We will get into that through the video as well. I just ask you to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps our channel. Thank you again so much for joining. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Christy's Readings, and TikTok, Christy's Readings 1. Also our Snapchat, Christy's Readings. Alexis Sharkey was born on the 25th of January 1994. Now, she was born to Michael and Stacey, and she also lived with her two sisters in Pennsylvania. She was described as a lovely, positive girl, very kind, very gentle-natured, was the life and soul of the party, was very, very loyal around friends and friendships, was very committed to anything that she put her mind to. She was also a very clever girl when it came to schooling and education. Alexis was a member of the Honour Society in her school. She also played sports. She had a lot of friends where she was committed to good friendships, good sports within school. She was excelling in school. She already had a fair idea what she wanted to do. She was driven, but her positivity and her bubbliness projected out amongst others, where they felt that she had that type of warm personality where you felt better after you'd met her or after you had seen her. Alexis graduated in 2012, where she went to Pittsburgh University to study biology, psychology and nutrition. She had a love for learning, as we already know, but she also had a love for travel. She was desperate to travel the world, see new cultures. With the personality that Alexis had, and what was said was that she wouldn't struggle to find friends wherever she went, which by the sound of it carried her into her next step. She fitted into the uni perfectly. She was there for 4 years. In 2016, she graduated, top of her class. She then had decided that she was going to medical school, but she took the decision to take some time out for herself. I'd possibly think a gap here, because the amount of learning she'd done previous. So she decided to have another fresh start and moved to Texas in a town called Audacia. Alexis was lucky enough to get a job when she arrived in Texas at the Twin Peaks bar. Now, it's like a Hooters bar, a sports bar. She worked there, and between her personality, she again enjoyed it very much so, meeting new friends, her social circle and the social side of things as well. I do genuinely think, when I'm looking into this case as a psychic, at this point when I read through this part of the case, I do get that she's living her best life, she's finding who she is, and it sounds very, very cliche, but I do believe that was a point in her life where she knew what she wanted and what she didn't want, and maybe again, family and friends, certain people weren't happy, or they thought she was taking her studies to a side. It's just psychically what I get around that, but I do believe that she was truly happy at this point. And I believe that her friendships in Texas at that point were very, very genuine, and the people that were in round about her. Alexis got engaged in July 2017. The engagement didn't last long, but she had good supportive friends around about her, especially when she worked at the Twin Peaks, who got her through that sad breakup. What I do get with that psychically is it was very quick decision, and it was more of probably a lust romance than a love romance. I also get around that as well, that was the turning point in this case, which we, again, you'll know as we go further on, that is the case. But I do believe, I see it a lot in my Facebook lives, my Instagram lives, when you're not in the best of place, you can attract the wrong person in, but you maybe think they're the right person because you think they're saving you at that point, but in reality, you attract like for like. So if you're feeling really rubbish in yourself, it's likely you're going to attract someone in the same. And I think that's quite poignant in this time of Alexis going through this breakup. She then becomes close to one of the regulars in the bar, a man called Tom Sharkey. It was said they clicked straight away, their personalities together were infectious. It was very obvious to how much they cared and had clicked with each other. He was a 6-foot bodybuilder. He was an oil worker, consultant. Now, from looking at the internet, there is not a lot on Tom Sharkey. I do know that he was a consultant in the oil field. He travelled the world, but other than that, we don't know a lot about it. They both did share a love for travel, which I do believe, and again, psychically, that was another selling point for Alexis. What I do think on that is what I've said, is that I do think at that time she probably wasn't emotionally in the best of place. And I do feel around Tom, psychically, there's a lot more to what he was projecting out or what he was perceiving. The other staff that worked in the bar said that Tom was a regular, he made them all laugh, he had a good personality. And again, it was an instant connection between him and Alexis, and also the people round about them seen the instant connection between both of them. Tom had also been married with 2 children, and at that point he was divorced. Although Alexis was young, you have to bear in mind Tom was in his late 40s, Alexis was in her early 20s. It didn't faze her that Tom had children or that he'd already been married. Their love for travel bonded them alongside this instant connection. Again, I do say it to a lot of clients every day. Sometimes the quick relationships are the ones not to trust, because if they've made the decision to love you that quick, they will make the decision to unlove you just as quick. Also in this time, Alexis had side jobs as well as the Twin Peaks. She realised very quickly that she didn't have much of a balance in her life. She was burning the candle at both ends and not making a lot of money for it either. She decided that she wanted to make a change. Again, she wanted to look at something that was going to have more money attached, but basically so she could work anywhere she wanted, starting her own business. Alexis decided to take on another side job with the company Monate, which is the hair care product company. It's actually a MLM business, which is a multi-level marketing business. It's a pyramid scheme. Now, a lot of people who go into these types of schemes, you may see online, they say they run their own business and come and check the products, would you like to work for them? Sadly, it's not the case, it isn't their own business. Most people don't do so great in MLM business, but in this case, Alexis did do well. Now, again, it'll be down to her personality, the warmth in her to recruit other people. At first she was selling the products. It wasn't long before she then started recruiting for the pyramid scheme, the person at the top, and so on and so on and so on. Alexis gave up her full-time job after a month at Twin Peaks to work full-time at Monate. She also, at this point, had started recruiting, so again, people under her. She was making a lot of friends through this. She was also posting on her Instagram every single day to do with the product. In this time, she was also becoming an influencer because of the product and the amount of friends that she was networking with and making. Part of this Monate's lifestyle was to promote a very lavish lifestyle, that you're making a lot of money and you could be in the same boat if you do the same thing. And the reality is that is true. And with Alexis's personality, that is what was happening for her. She was constantly, now I need you to bear this in mind at this point, she posted daily. Every few hours, her story always had either a post about herself or a post about getting people to recruit and reminding other people to post and to do with business as well. She didn't like to be called an influencer, she liked to be called a businesswoman or a mentor. He had 3 legal cases against him for fraud and deception. Now, most of Alexis' posts were to do with Monate, but also the recruiting side was where the money was at. So you can imagine, with Alexis' personality, bringing on other women, she was building women up, she was mentoring other women, self-care, all these different things. She was a very, very strong advocate for self-care and things. So it was easy for her to make this money because of the recruitment side, because again, she had a warm personality, so these people were buying into this, which again, wasn't a bad thing, not a bad thing in any way whatsoever. Effectively, she was selling the lifestyle of having freedom, working wherever you want to go, having your dream job, being your own boss, and money is pretty much limitless. Now, alongside that, with her self-care, on Instagram, this was booming, this was becoming bigger, she was making a lot of money, but her phone was her work. She had her phone with her constantly. I know that feeling. It's easier, like today we are on doing this video, I have bought a new vlogging camera, I've told you on Facebook and Instagram, but I still revert back to my phone because it's so much easier. Everything's in my phone to do with my business as well, so I can understand that. So again, we have to keep this in mind. She posted daily. every few hours, and she had a passion and a drive for the business and her job that she'd done. And again, I feel she felt very loyal to these people and committed, that she wasn't the type of person to say it knowing that it wasn't going to work. She was saying it, believing it, that this could change other people's lives and help them have a better life as well. By June 2019, Alexis and Tom were engaged, and they decided at that point they were looking for a fresh start, so they decided that they would move to Colorado. On Instagram at that point, they looked very, very happy and content. They were sharing their adventures, their journeys, their travels, and their next step and next stage in life. Decided later that year to head back to Texas, but they also decided to do a 25-day road trip. Now, Alexis had just bought a Bengal cat, you'll see it on her Instagram as well, so the cat went travelling with them. On the road trip, they went to New Mexico, Arizona, Utah and Colorado. They did a short vlog. Tom was in the vlog as well. To be honest with you, when you look at her YouTube, if you have a look at her social media platforms, she looks very happy and content. But as a psychic, I do feel that she was possibly in love with the lifestyle, or she was very young and made a decision and probably decided as she got older and wiser that she maybe jumped a little bit too quick. Just my opinion. Social media has a funny way of letting us think everyone else's life's perfect but our own. And I do feel Alexis was no different. We don't post the bad stuff. A lot of people don't post the bad stuff because they don't want to project that onto other people. A lot of people don't post it because they're private. Some people do post it because they want to vent it off and get it out there. There's no right or wrong answer. But we all know, vlogging life, social media life, any sort of life, they're all the same. Nothing's ever perfect. Nothing's perfect. In December 2019, Alexis and Tom got married in a courthouse in Colorado, and early 2020 they then went back to settle in Houston, Texas. Now at this point, Alexis is 26, Tom's 49. When they arrive in Houston, Alexis decides to get the app Bumblebee FF. It's like the friendship side of Bumble, the dating app. And the reason she'd done it was to get new friends and again network within a local area. I can imagine as well to expand on business, but also get to know the area. So she went forward with this app and she met friends straight away. One lady in particular was Tanya Ricardo. Tanya Ricardo was a divorced mum of two who invited Alexis to a meal alongside her own friends so that Alexis could meet them. When Alexis met them, they all clicked straight away. They then formed more of a group chat and a girl group. Alexis then brought her own friends into the mix, which then befriended Tanya's friends. So effectively they all became one big girl group together. They had a group chat, they were speaking daily. You know what it's like with girls. I'm sure I'm not the only one in these group chats. I'm sure I'm not the only one who would hate for group chats to get out publicly. But what I do get from this is that they were very supportive women towards each other. Some of the other ladies also had an influencing career as well. So again, there were a lot of neutral ground between them all, but they did speak daily and they spoke out their problems to each other as well, just like all us ladies do. Also known in that group chat for being the quickest to reply. If anyone put anything into the chat, she was probably the most to communicate back and forth with every member in the group chat. It was also noted by other friends within that chat that Alexis didn't speak very much about Tom. Now, that could be for many reasons. She could be very content in a relationship or marriage, or she could be not feeling good about it and that's the reason she doesn't want to speak. Or could she not be that she didn't trust the people, or she only got to know them, so maybe didn't want to speak out her problems straight away? There's so many reasons and theories at this side. Now this is where the case starts to take a turn, alright. We are going to do the spirit box at the end of this live as well, and I think it'll be very interesting. I'm saying live, apologies, we are vlogging, we're not live. I think it'll be very, very interesting because I will be asking a direct question: who killed Alexis Sharkey? And hopefully if something comes through in the spirit, I will be asking the spirit box who killed Alexis Sharkey. I will also be asking who is involved or what other lies have been told. We're going to get into the next bit of the case. I'm going to keep putting my little bit in here around my psychic vibe. I try not to be most cases, but this is ongoing, and the reason I want to do it is because when things start to play out within the media or within the case, it means hopefully we'll be getting some sort of validations. I do have my own theory on this case, and when I watched the case myself and started doing all my homework, it was at this point, from now on, that I started to feel some of it was getting quite sinister, disingenuous, just all these different things. So again, I hope to anybody who's watching that they don't mind that I am going to put my psychic side into it as well in this case. I don't do it often, but I just feel this is a young girl and it's not been spoke about enough. So let's again follow her, like her posts. Her mum wants us to do that. March 2020, we hit the pandemic. We went into a lockdown, and like most people, Alexis started a TikTok account. It brought out her fun side. You got to see her personality. It was good for her business. It was good for the networking roundabout, especially the fact that we were online at that point more now than ever. With the TikTok as well, I can imagine she got a lot of attention and brought in new followers, different types of attention. We do know with TikTok what TikTok can be like. It is a very easy platform to go big very, very quickly. And that's exactly what happened with Alexis as well.
No idea that some women are batshit crazy. We know, okay? We know way more shit than you know. We see the text messages she didn't send to you. We know. We see the ones that are too crazy to even get to your phone. Because we're the ones that put a stop to that shit. We're the ones like, no, you're not going to kidnap his mom. Delete it. Give me the phone. Just give me the phone.
She also featured Tom in her TikToks as well. Now, Tom had featured in some of her vlogs, part of the Instagram. So the TikTok that was featured with Tom and her was October 2020, and they were dressed up for Halloween as Vikings. In November 2020, Alexis and one of her friends took a trip to New Mexico. Tom was not present on that trip. She did put a post up on Instagram and said that this is where she wanted to live, she was going to move there. But again, we all know when we go on holiday or we have a really good time, especially if we're trying to maybe escape from something, then we sometimes do feel like that. In that instance, that could have been that post. Again, she could have been kidding on that post and just having a bit of jest with her followers and the fact that she was away, but she did post that she wanted to live in New Mexico. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Alexis phoned her mum to let her know that she wouldn't be coming home for Thanksgiving to Pennsylvania. Now, the reason was to do with lockdown, the pandemic, and that is the longest Alexis had ever been away and not visited her family. Her mum did find it a little bit strange that she wasn't coming home for the holidays, but also could understand with the pandemic and especially the fact they hadn't seen each other that full year. What they decided on was that they would celebrate at Christmas time, and she would be coming home then. On Thanksgiving, Alexis and her mum exchanged texts back and forth, happy Thanksgiving, but they did not speak on the phone. It was a busy day all round. Alexis went to Tanya Ricardo's for dinner that evening without Tom. Now, what I find weird about this part is that they're a newlywed couple. From what her friends have said, our very close friends and childhood friends, the holidays was Alexis' thing. She loved the holidays. But again, maybe it wasn't a big thing to Tom and Alexis together as a couple. He was not at Tanya's. Now, bearing in mind, as it stands just now, this is still an open case. so we still don't know the ins and outs. What I do get with that, there was already problems, and that's why she's been at Tanya's. But again, we'll keep the conclusion till the end. At 12 o'clock that evening, Alexis decided to go to a bar. A friend picked her up from Tanya's, an unknown friend at this point, picked her up from Tanya's, and they went to the bar to 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, she texts Tanya because she'd left a few of her things at Tanya's house and she wanted to go back there. Tanya didn't wake up, she was asleep. She never woke up to the text message, but when she did wake up in the morning, Alexis' car was gone and Alexis had came by and took her car. The next day was Black Friday. Now again, especially with a company like Monat, Alexis had already said to her reps, like that was one of their biggest sales days, they had to post for the first thing. A lot of people were posting since their Thanksgiving meal from then onwards. On that day, all Alexis' reps were posting, but there was no updates from Alexis whatsoever, none. Now, considering Black Friday is probably one of your biggest online retail days, as well as physical as well, maybe not so much now in this age, that you would expect her to be the first to post. You'd expect her to be putting out maybe a wee message in the morning to our team to build them up and get them excited and build a bit of team momentum, but nothing. She never contacted anyone, she never got in touch with her team to give them the details of the deals or anything that was happening that day for Black Friday, which was very, very unusual for Alexis because she posted at 5:30 that evening. The group chat of ladies received a text from Alexis to say, what are you up to, what's happening, does anyone want to do anything? She'd asked Tanya, would she like to go out? Now, Tanya had said to her, my mum's in town until tomorrow, but would you all like to come round, we can watch movies, get our PJs on and have a catch up tomorrow. So all the girls agreed the next day that's what they would do. That was the last time that the girls heard from Alexis. What I do find strange at this point is that Alexis hasn't posted all day. One of her busiest days of the year is within Monat, but although she never posted all day or spoke to any of her teammates or anything like that, she texted the group chat to find out what everyone was doing that night. Again, maybe she was having an off day and just didn't want to face social media and then wanted to go out and get a drink. We've all done it. Or is it something more serious? A few hours later, Tom gets in touch with a man called John. Now, John is Alexis' friend's boyfriend and basically says, have you heard from Alexis? Has anyone seen her? And he also proceeds to tell John that they had an argument and that she ran off in barefoot. Now, it does transpire that Tom's story changed multiple times to how she exited the house, she went off on her own, so many different stories, and John was one of the men that he told this story to. He told a few other people about the argument as well, but later changed his story and said there was no argument. Now, what was also weird about this was Tom had texted John this. You'd think with a serious situation like that, he wouldn't have sent a text, he would have called. But he didn't, and it sat on John's nerves for a few hours where he decided to call Tom at 11 o'clock that evening. Is then when Tom proceeded to tell him about the argument and basically was coming across as if he was telling him everything that had happened that evening. They had never seen her, they had not heard of her. Anyone else he contacted that day, they had not arranged to pick her up or anything like that at all. So she'd been in contact with nobody that Tom had got in touch with the next day. He also said that he used the Find My Friends app and he followed her about in a black car, and then eventually he lost her, and he said that he sat at a gas station for 2 hours to decide what to do next. If you've got Find My Friends app, surely you can't just lose someone unless they switch that off. Now, bearing in mind at this point, Alexis's phone was still shown as on. On Saturday the 28th of November, Tanya texted into the group chat about the movie afternoon, the PJ day. Slowly, all the girls started to come back when they were waking up just to say, yep, that's me in, I'm going to do it. Alexis didn't reply. Now, the girls did find that a bit strange, but obviously she'd been out the night before, so they were presuming maybe she was still sleeping. They weren't concerned straight away, but what they did realise was that she's a quick replier. If anything, she'd instigated this type of event for today, so they were probably expecting at that point that she was going to be first to reply. The girls did all meet up that day. They watched their movies thinking that Alexis would turn up at one point. As the day went on and she didn't turn up, they decided to check her social media, and that's when they became very, very alarmed. Our last post was 12 hours before this. Now, as I've said throughout this video, she posted daily, she posted in her story hourly, So they found this very strange, and considering the day before had been Black Friday, they would have expected to see her being posting and again hyping her reps up. What I do think as well is, especially around Thanksgiving, they probably didn't even realise on that day of Black Friday that she hadn't posted, because you usually find it's your friends that don't notice all your posts as such. So I think what's happened is they've never realised until that point that she's not posted, which is very strange considering how many times she did post it. They did call and text her, but it kept going to voicemail, and also Alexis always had her read receipts on. And in this occasion, they were delivering, but they were not being read, which again, the ladies found very, very strange. At 3 p.m, Tanya decided to go to Alexis and Tom's house. She chapped the door. Now there is cameras at Alexis' front door and on her doorbell, but again, there was no answer. There were sensors on it as well. She went back to her car, deciding what to do next. She wanted to get in touch with Alexis' mum, but she didn't want to cause any worry because she was unsure at this point if Alexis was missing and if there was something wrong. But she made the decision at that point to call Alexis' mum. When Tanya called Alexis' mum, Stacey, she was already been made aware by Tom. Stacey did tell the girls that Tom had called earlier that day, and she was in the loop with everything. She knew everything that was going on. What I do find strange at this point, later that day, it was Alexis' friends that filed the missing person report to make everybody aware that she was missing. Straight away, it went straight onto social media. Now, bearing in mind she was a big influencer at that point as well. I think she was on Instagram at that point with 22,000 followers. It was going wildfire. Again, everyone was coming back and saying that they hadn't seen her. Again, the stories that Tom had said, someone had picked her up and taken her away. Nobody was vouching to say that was me. She'd text me. Everyone was saying that they hadn't heard from her, they hadn't seen her. And the last time in that group chat, they'd heard between 6 and 7 p.m. that night, and that was the last the girls had heard from her as well. They found it very, very strange at this point. And the fact that it wasn't Tom filing the missing person or the family, I do find strange as well. What I also found very strange, taking a look back over the case, was at this point, this is where the hashtag Justice for Lex came in. Now, looking back over the case, why were they looking for justice at that point? Was somebody running a narrative story? Did people know more? But I just find it very strange. Before Alexis was found, they were using this hashtag Justice for Lex. Now, it was Alexis' friends, Tanya, Ricardo, and those girls were the ones that started this hashtag. And what the family and friends didn't realise at this point, that in actual fact, a body had been found on quite a quiet road on the 10 interchange. They were still posting. Her mum had just popped a wee post up, basically to let everyone know that she was missing. And the reality had been that the body had already been found, but these people didn't know yet.
Road near I-10. They're trying to figure out how a body ended up in this brush. Now, it was Saturday morning when a garbage truck driver, he noticed feet coming up from the bushes. He called this into 911. Today, police identified that body of that as Alexis Sharkey. I spoke with her mother today in an emotional interview, and she told me she believes her daughter was murdered.
She was literally a ray of sunshine from the beginning.
At 26 years young, Alexis Sharkey lost her life. Her mother, Stacey Robinault, who lives out of state in Pennsylvania, said her daughter went missing Friday night. Today, Houston police identified the woman found dead and naked on Saturday morning on Red Hoss Street as Alexis Sharkey. Over the weekend, they said there weren't obvious injuries. Robinault says she suspects foul play in her daughter's
City
death.
workers that found Alexis also said when the man was driving past, he thought it was a mannequin. Now, it was the way that Alexis had been positioned. She was found naked with no possessions whatsoever, and the city workers did also say that she looked very, very clean, like she just came out the bath or the shower. But yeah, and you think as well the way she's been positioned to whoever did that to her. Why would they want to position her at the side of the road like that so that everyone could see her? Although it was a quiet road, there was no evidence to say that the body was been hidden. It was basically positioned there so that anyone who drove past could see. And in the case, it was the city workers. And in a sense, probably thank goodness, and it wasn't anybody with their children or maybe someone on their own. Tom was Alexis's next of kin. He was called by the police and asked to go and identify the body, which he did do. Once Alexis was identified, Stacey, Alexis' mum, also popped out a post on Facebook, and from then social media was flooded with condolences, prayers, shock, but also the question of who would do this to such a lovely girl who had a lot of friends, who had been told that she had a great personality, was always positive, loved travel, all these nice things. Who would want to hurt someone like that? Now that was the biggest question in social media. The body was found on the 30th of November. Now, when Alexis's body was found, the police were not convinced at the beginning that it was murder, for the reason there was no visible trauma on the body. So again, they had to wait for the autopsy results before they could decide whether this was a homicide case or not. Alexis' mum and friends were all convinced that someone had done something to her. They also said that she never took drugs, and if there was drugs in her system, that it would have been forced upon her, that she wouldn't willingly have went and took the drugs. Speculated because there was no visible trauma to the body, that she could maybe have been poisoned, strangled, all these different things. So at this point in the case, there is no autopsy results, so no one really knows what's happened. But what they do know is that Alexis has been found somewhere that she shouldn't have been, with no phone, no items. Now, bearing in mind, we did say at the start of this case, her work is her phone. She has her phone with her constantly. So you can imagine yourself, if the story that Tom is saying is true, that she left, he said she left in bare feet. Why would she leave without her phone? She left somewhere where she had nobody round about her or close to her to go to their home either. Again, to leave in bare feet. During this time, Alexis' friends speak to the media. One friend in particular, Tanya Ricardo. This lady was very much at the forefront from the word go. She raised the alarm as such. They then put the missing person report in. But again, they were advised by the police because of Alexis' big following to watch what they were posting on social media regarding the situation. I don't feel it looks at it in this point, but I do feel like Tanya was running some sort of narrative as well, or she had her own beliefs. But what we do have to remember is girls talk. We sometimes know our friends better than our partners in situations like that, and maybe that's what was reflecting in on that interview.
Because I know her mom said she recently moved to Houston.
Right. She moved here in January, and we met, within weeks of her moving here. I was kind of looking for a new group of friends, and I brought this group of friends together, and she showed up to this dinner. And since that day, she's just been part of our circle.
What kind of, she's 26. I was telling you that I was scrolling through. It's kind of a deep dive. She just knew so many people. She was active. I was looking at this vacation that she and her husband had just taken, this road trip. She seemed bubbly and full of life to me. I didn't know her. How would you describe her?
Exactly like you did. She was always happy, always had a smile on her face. A lot of people looked up to her. She was just very, very positive. Always positive, always very knowledgeable, knew a lot about what was going on, loved being an influencer, as you can see, and sharing, tips and tricks about makeup and hair and fashion. If we needed her for anything to do with that, she was the girl to go to, for sure.
How did you meet her before and never had success? So she was a girl's girl. She was looking for friends when you met her.
Yeah, she was looking for friends, and she definitely found people that really, really loved her, truly.
And so kind of tell, when was the last time you talked to her?
She was actually at my house on Thanksgiving. We spent Thanksgiving together with my family. And then we had made plans Friday to get together Saturday because it was raining. We were going to watch movies all day. And the last time I spoke to her was Friday around 6 o'clock was when my last text message was sent to her.
PM.
Yes.
And did it go unresponded? Did you hear from her? That was period the end. Okay, you thought everything was okay.
Yeah, I thought everything was fine. And then the next morning I woke up really early. I sent a text to the group of girls. We have a shared chat and said, who's coming over, movie day or whatever. Alexis would have been the first person to respond. I mean, if I'm going to jail, Alexis is the first person I'm calling or texting because I know she's going to answer within seconds. So I started getting a little concerned and I said, this isn't normal. And so all the girls kind of got together and we were like, okay, well, when was the last time you talked to her? When was the last time you talked to her? And they all said around 6 p.m. Friday.
And what was that conversation about, the last text message you sent?
The last conversation I had with her, she was asking me what I was doing Friday night. And I said, well, my mom's in town from Mexico, so I'm going to stay home with her. And then we said, okay, love you, whatever, and that was it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. My mind doesn't even go anywhere. I still feel like she's here. I don't know who could have done something like this to her. We were her friends. She wasn't one to have a lot of group of friends. If she needed something, if she needed someone to come pick her up or take her somewhere, or if she was going to get in the car and go somewhere, it would have been to my house or the 7 other girls that she was close with.
And none of you all are in walking distance to her?
No.
So she would have, you really do believe she would have called you and said, come pick me up?
She would have called us or taken an Uber or something. I mean, she wouldn't have walked anywhere. No.
What can you, because you can't even wrap your mind around this, right? Like, what if 48 hours from Thanksgiving to Saturday? Can you even imagine who would have done this to her? Like, do you have a message to that person? They clearly tried to hide her body, and they disrespected her. I mean, just all of it so much. What do you say to that?
Whoever did this we're gonna find them. We're gonna do everything it takes so everyone can put her to rest in peace and where we can get answers and just move forward. But no one gets away with something like this. No one. I mean, just threw her on the side of the road naked like garbage. I don't get it. So ugly.
It is, right? It's kind of the worst. It is like garbage. I hadn't thought about it, but that's what it, right? And
yep.
And 8 miles from where she was last seen, and I'm trying to piece all the information together, and it just didn't seem to add up, especially hearing that she was among friends on Thanksgiving, the day before, and making plans for that weekend.
Yeah, and like I said, it's very unlike her to not follow through with plans. It's very unlike her to not reach out when someone texts her. When we say something, we're doing something, she does it. She doesn't go back on her word at all. And she actually lives about 3 minutes away where her body was found.
I saw that, just 8 miles, just down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And is she ever is it like her to not have her cell phone with her? Or
no.
Any of the, have you talked to the, oh my gosh, this was not there, this is not there, this was...
No, she is attached to her phone. She is a social media queen. She's an influencer. She works from her phone. Like I said, if I was in trouble, she would be the first person I would call. And we called and called and called and called, and her phone was on, and her messages were being sent, but not being read because she had her read receipts on. And then until yesterday is when her phone was shut off by whoever has it. Or, maybe it was thrown somewhere and it finally died. But, I mean, when we realized that her social media was not active for over 12 hours, you're like, okay, this is not right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not right.
And were you in communication at all with her mom? I know they're out of state. They're trying to file these reports. I didn't know if, sometimes moms reach out to the girlfriends, because they just know how close we all are to each other.
Right. I gave it a little bit of time. I called her mom because I was the one that I went to her apartment, knocked on her door. I did all that because I lived the closest. And so after a while, I was contemplating, should I call her mom? Like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to worry her because she's far, far away.
Right.
And finally, after a while of just sitting in my car outside of her apartment, I said, I have to call her because I'm a mom. I would want to know.
So you notified the mom?
Yes.
And then she got all the
My
balls.
opinion, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Is that a good friend that would go on and speak to the media straight away? I don't know, just my opinion. If it was my friend, I don't think I'd want to speak to the media. I'd be worried that I would, if I really thought that person had been murdered, I'd be worried that I ruined the case or did anything that would affect the case where there wouldn't be any justice. That's the bit I find strange about that interview. And also, it's girl code when you tell your friends thing. You might have to tell the police one day, but you certainly don't need to go and tell the media. And again, I think the media, there was a lot of kind of media interviews with her friends, and they were starting to kind of build a picture of Alexis' relationship. Now, bearing in mind, this is from a set of girls that are making the assumption. At this point, Alexis' mum didn't feel that she had to worry that it could have been Tom. She never felt threatened or her daughter shouldn't have been round Tom. She'd no gut instinct like that whatsoever. When Alexis was on holiday with her friend in New Mexico, the friend did say that she had said in holiday that the marriage wasn't good, implied there could be domestic abuse, but also that she feared for her life from him at that point. They also claim that the couple were going through a divorce and they had already split their bank accounts by the time that Alexis had went missing. But again, Alexis' mum knew none of this. What she did say was she was due to come home at Christmas, and she's presuming, if that was the case, that Alexis was going to come home at the holidays and speak to her about it then. But Alexis never said to her mum once that there was a divorce or anything like that, or that there was any sort of problems in their marriage. Tom also done an interview with a reporter as well, and what he said was that Alexis was positive and fun-loving around everyone else, but it wasn't like that behind closed doors for him and her. Her mum came to her defence very quickly and also did an interview just to confirm that she could say Alexis always was positive and that basically what he was saying wasn't the truth. Now, Tom gave this interview to the reporter, and by the end of the interview he hung up on the reporter and told him never to contact him again. The reporter couldn't get back in touch with him. He also said the last time he seen her, she was running in barefoot. There was a lot of things that didn't add up in the interview, and I think it's that interview and the allegations at that point that's then put more question towards Alexis' husband Tom. He also put up a Facebook status as well, which raised a little bit of suspicion for some people. It kind of depends your opinion on it, to be honest. Now, you would have seen in Tanya Ricardo's video there, the media said to her, so did you alert Alexis' mum that she was missing? And she looked dead down that camera and said yes. Now, we know from the case that that's a lie. Tom called Stacey on the day that Alexis was missing and filled her in long before Tanya called her. But she sat on the media and said that she was the one that raised the alarm. She also said that she lived closest to the house, these different things psychically. I get that she's not completely honest, and we're going to go more into Tanya Ricardo in a second, just more of her background, which I found very interesting, which I also feel that could be in tone with this case in one way or another. Also said by one of Alexis' friends that when she was on holiday in New Mexico, that she had met a new man and his name was Sebastian, and when she got back they'd kept the communication going. Now, it was never confirmed whether they were dating or whether they were seeing each other. There's not much on Sebastian, but again, he was the friend who picked her up and took her to the bar till 3 a.m. in the morning. on the night that she went missing. Bearing in mind this is still an open case, so we have no way of an answer right now. Is he a suspect? Is Tom the suspect? What I do get with that is that by the sounds of it, it's likely they were going for divorce. Maybe they were in different pages to what behaviours were acceptable within a period of divorce as well. I do feel it's strange that she never told her mum, but I do agree with the fact that it's likely she was planning on telling her mum at Christmas time. And again, if she did meet this man, which I do feel is the case, then maybe she was just so happy and it was still sacred to her and she didn't want to mention it just yet. And you tell your friends everything, and I'm sure she told her friends in full faith, thinking that her friends wouldn't speak up. And did they? That's the question. Friends had arranged a memorial for the 3rd of December, but at this point they still didn't have the cause of death. So it was decided that it would be done after the cause of death, which again makes sense. I can imagine a situation like that if you're arranging a memorial and if people are pointing fingers, especially if it's around her spouse and things like that. Could you have a memorial and not invite them? Could you have a memorial, invite them with the risk of inviting the murderer? Or is the murderer already inviting people? That's the question. So I can imagine maybe that's the reason that's been postponed as well. It's probably down to the politics of it. Again, just my psychic vibe. Comments if you can confirm or validate. 19th of January 2021, the autopsy results came back and the cause of death was determined as strangulation. On that day is the day that Alexis Sharkey's case was classed as homicide. Until that day, it was not classed as homicide. And if you remember rightly, right at the beginning, the police weren't even sure if it was a murder just because of no visible trauma. The strangulation was the case. She was propped up in a position, as you know, at the side of the road. When it went to homicide, that's when the rumours started flying, who it could be. And at the same time, Tom was the prime suspect. Now, not through police, through the social media. And sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of people agree, it's innocent until proven guilty, but on social media it is very hard to keep that. And again, Tom's been wrote all over social media about he has done this and all these different things. So the case is pretty quiet for that. Tom being Alexis's next of kin. The coroner had named her in the report as Alexis Lee Romanold. Now that's her maiden name. Now bear in mind we were speaking around divorce proceedings. Because it's an open case, we don't know was there divorce proceedings, but it was said that the papers were already drawn up and ready to be signed. But because Tom was our next of kin, he then had to decide what happened with Alexis's body. It transpired on the 18th of January that her body had still not been claimed. Now at the beginning Tom was cooperating with her mum and dad and they were going back and forth, but for a 2-week period the reality is he ghosted her mum. She wasn't able to see her daughter or get her daughter flown back to Pennsylvania. That's why the GoFundMe page was set up. Now, it was obviously Tom who would have the last decision on claiming the body. No cooperation. His mum had resigned herself and never seen her daughter again. Now, bearing in mind, Alexis's mum hadn't seen her from the year before due to COVID and the pandemic, and she was desperate to see her, and eventually 2 weeks later Tom signed over his rights to give her mum the next of kin, where then they could bring her home. They had a private funeral in her hometown. It was very, very private, and I can imagine that it's everything that her mum would want. But if you could imagine your own child and not being able to get to them or bring them back home, and someone holding something like that against you, it must have been absolutely horrible for Stacey and her family. Tom also didn't attend Alexis's funeral either. I'm not sure if he wasn't invited or how that played out. Again, because it's still a live case, I'm sure we'll find out those details. Again, once we get to the end of this case and find out is there going to be anybody arrested. As it stands at the moment, there has been no arrest, but we're going to come on to that in a wee second. Let's just talk a little bit about Tom Sharkey, alright? As we know, Tom Sharkey had 2 children and he was divorced. It later came to light that his children were 12 and 9, a boy and a girl, and his wife had asked that she have sole custody of the children and Tom must have supervised visits. Now Tom's family agreed that that would be the best foot forward, and one of the family members also said they were pretty scared of Tom. What they said was, especially around his ex-wife, if she didn't do what he wanted her to do, he would take revenge. And on one occasion, he took revenge by sending nudes to his wife's work so that they would see the photos. That's mad, isn't it? Why would you want to do that? It's just... But again, it's showing you the personality trait. He wasn't getting he had to have supervised visits with his children. They don't put that into place for nothing either. Let's go on to Tanya Ricardo though as well.
She wants to look like one of them.
I want to look just like Meghan Markle. She's beautiful, she's just graceful. She's a very, very graceful woman.
Tanya Ricardo works in the oil industry. She is a divorced mom and says that the gym just hasn't given her those Meghan Markle curves.
Our height is similar, our weight is similar, and I just want what she has that I don't.
Now, the 30-year-old is getting a cosmetic surgery makeover to look like Duchess Meghan.
She has great cheekbones, which is what I want.
Tanya is also biracial, and comparing herself to Meghan, she sees a few other problem areas.
She has these great curves. What I want is to achieve the same thing throughout here and get rid of this so that I have a great flat stomach. See this? You see none of that here.
They say I'm very crazy for doing this, but I don't care. I'm gonna do it.
The day before the surgery, Tanya's friends dropped by to cheer her on.
So pretty.
I think she looks very similar.
Tanya's boyfriend Michael pops some bubbly.
I think she'll be prettier than Meghan Markle.
To Meghan Markle!
At this point, this is just my opinion, alright? She works in the oil industry. And she said something in that really struck me, being psychic as well. I want what she's got, she kept saying, talking about Meghan Markle. For me, I feel it makes a little bit of sense she's exploiting her friend's death in a sense because she's the one that thinks is a spokesperson for the media. When in reality, is Tanya doing it for herself? Is she doing it for a friend? Does she know more than she's letting on? Now, again, this is a live case. There's been no arrest. They have already said the last report was the 20th of September last year, and there was one in March or May, but the update was there is no update, and the police are giving nothing away to the conclusion. Now, please bear in mind, this is just my opinion, my own psychic opinion. I do believe that there are two people involved in Alexis Sharkey's murder. I believe there is one murderer and there's someone else that gave the bait. I believe that Alexis left Tanya's house, as said, on the night in question alongside Sebastian. I feel they went to a bar. I feel Tanya possibly could have felt left out at this point. Again, you go to your pal's house and you leave her to go to a man. We all have something to say. Come on, ladies, we know what we're like. Maybe that disgruntled her. Now, you've seen in the video, I want what she's got. That really highlights to me as a psychic on that type of personality. The Meghan Markle thing, she's not happy in herself, she's looking for to be like anyone else. You do also see in the media interview how she speaks about Alexis. She's an influencer, she's a queen, ride and die together. It's a very quick friendship in a small period of time. And the way she speaks about Alexis on the report and the interview is if they have been friends for a long, long time, which again, we're all aware friendships can grow very, very quickly, especially if you don't live close to your family or you relocate. But I just feel around that there was a lot of fakeness. She was speaking out a lot of her friend's business when I think most people would agree it's the last thing you would do. You would want to keep your friend's privacy. It's a bad enough feeling as it is in a situation like that when the world's talking about somebody they didn't even know. And for loved ones and close ones, that can be very uncomfortable and it can make loved ones feel resentful at times as well. Tanya lied in that media interview and said that she said to Alexis' mum, when again that wasn't the case. So just remember on that side, her both worked in the oil industry as well, which I feel is very, very poignant. And again, I've said it a few times throughout this video, this is very much a live case. I do believe the police have not reported on it and not updated any media because of the amount of interviews they were taking at the start. I feel it's hindered the case. As it stands right now, there is no arrests. The police have updated saying that they're still working on the case, and I truly, truly believe that. What I do feel has happened is that either Tanya has contacted Tom when Alexis has left at midnight or at 3 in the morning. I feel it's at midnight and Tom's been in a bit of a frenzy all that time. And when she's came back and got her car at 3 o'clock, I do believe Tanya has let him know in some way or another. So that's what I mean by there is one murderer and someone else feeding it, aka Tanya. Now this is only my opinion, but I'll tell you what the motive is. It's very clear to say that it is obviously obvious that Tanya is not happy in who the person she is. And I psychically get she maybe looked at Alexis, would never admit it to herself, but possibly thought, I'm trying to be who she is. But I also think she thought Alexis was disregarding of her relationship and maybe felt Alexis should have felt luckier, whether maybe Alexis came back her holiday and thought, this new man around about me is changing how I am in a good way, make me feel good about myself. And you do find when you're feeling good in yourself, then you realise the people that would prefer that you're not. Now, a lot of people would rather be by your side when you're down than when you're up, and I feel that was the case. I do feel that Tanya's going to be caught out very, very soon around this, if it's not already happened and it's just not public knowledge. But I do also believe that something else is going to come out about Tom Sharkey that might actually take him away from the case a bit. Possibly the police are protecting his mental health at the moment, because if they don't have solid evidence or an answer, again, they have to look after him, and within a witch hunt in social media. I think it was the bit that's a bit confusing around Tanya and Tom is that Tanya is really driving this narrative that Tom did it. Is she driving the narrative because the conversation she had with Alexis, or is she driving the narrative because she already knows and she knows that she played a part in that? It would be silly to think that she would be so close to the case if she did play a part in it. But on the psychology side of things, you usually find people involved in something like that place themselves in the centre of the crime. And the reason they do that is so they know everything that's going on, because they think then they're protecting themselves. And in reality, they're basically ticking the boxes of a psychologist who would look at that and then say those behaviours are in tone with that. I do believe, and it is just my opinion, that Tom Sharkey did kill his wife, Alexis Sharkey. I believe that he killed her because he presumed that she might be dating, but I feel Tanya possibly let Tom know that Sebastian was the one that picked her up that evening, and it was a bit more serious than it had been letting on. I feel he went into a rage. I want to say that the way she was found was humiliation for her, that he projected that out because he felt that way. He felt mugged off in himself. In reality, I feel Tanya thought she was possibly going to get more out of that. The friends of 7, which would now be 6 without Alexis, I believe 3 of their friends feel that Tanya has something to do with it. Again, just my opinion and my psychic vibe. I'll give you my prediction for the months going forward on this before we do the spirit box. So apologies if I keep looking down. I'm trying to get better at this crime stories and this vlogging, alright? I appreciate your time and watching me if you've watched to this point, but I'm going to read this bit out just so I get the predictions right, alright? No arrest until January 2022. A man and a woman. Man will always deny. Woman will throw him under the bus. I feel he knows he is under investigation and is cooperating. Lack of media suggests more of a welfare. After the death threats, now he was given death threats when it was all coming out on social media. There's a chance that people thought he had done it. A lady will be found with Alexis' possessions, which may confuse the case. So I do feel that some of her possessions are going to be found, and I feel a lady's going to be connected to that. But I don't feel she's connected to the death. But what I do feel is she'll have vital information that's going to tie something together. I do feel this case will go to proper court and judgment before November 2022. I just want to thank you all for your time this evening. I hope you have enjoyed this video. We are now going to go on and do the spirit box for the next 3 or 4 minutes to end the video. I am going to ask the questions. Is Alexis with us? Does she know who killed her? Is there a motive? I'm going to ask all the questions that we would want to ask. Please listen carefully to the spirit box. It can give you a little bit of a sore head, but the more you get used to it, the easier it gets to listen to. So you're maybe better going back and looking at some of your other crime stories that's got the spirit box just to get an idea. Don't be, again, rewind, don't be scared to go back to just the spirit box part till you kind of listen over and over. But please comment below if you hear anything that I don't suggest on the video. With the spirit box, we usually get a lot out of it after the video's been posted. So we do the spirit box and I'll leave it to you guys to decide, but I'll give you what I get as and when, alright? Can you ask you all to put a little bit of sage on at this point? Burn it. Don't worry if you've not got it. I've had a lady that was using pack, so don't use that, just use sage. It's just to protect you. Alexis, are you with us? Alexis, do you have anything to tell us? Karina or Karira? Alexis, do you know who killed you? Ben. Alexis, can you name your murderer? Who did the terrible thing? Did your husband murder you, Alexis? You tried to get up. Alexis, where did he bathe you or wash you? There were steps nearby. He was reeling. Tanya, Ricardo have anything to do with your murder, or does she know what happened to you? Somebody was 31. 41 maybe. Please comment below if you can hear anything, guys. It really helps me. Alexis, when will you have justice? Last question, Alexis. Was your friends Tanya and the other 5 friends genuine? I don't know if they're seeing your pistol for trying to do the steps. The jealousy ran deep. Alexis, who was jealous of you? There's a C connection with all this as well. What a case, guys. I can't thank you all enough for liking, commenting, subscribing. Please remember to do it because you'll get a wee notification if you ring our bell as well. Anytime we go live, which we do often, and also any videos that we upload, you'll get a notification as soon as they're uploaded. Thank you so much. My condolences to Alexis's family and friends. Again, this is just my psychic vibe on it, but one thing I do get psychic is that she was a lovely soul inside and out, and she was not deserving of what happened to her. But I do feel she was a young girl who was very manipulated at a young age. By, again, relationship, it was her choice, but I do feel that she started to break away from that and realised after she got married that she'd maybe jumped a little bit quick, and I do feel someone did turn her head, but I think quite rightly so. I don't feel, again, it's testament to we think things look good on the outside. Her life looked absolutely perfect, her relationship and marriage did, and by the looks of it wasn't the case. When there's an update in the case, I will update this video as well, but feel free to contact us on Facebook and Instagram, Chrissy's Readings, if there is any validations or any updates as well, and we really do appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this video this evening. There will be another video being put up later in the week around crime stories, and any crime stories you'd like me to look into, feel free to comment below. But just please remember to subscribe, it means a lot. Please take care and stay safe, and have a good evening.